looking around in that cabin, just curious as to how they did the sills with the rafters, but that's a new style conglomeration. Even like the ends, whether you use board and batten, that's a more modern take on things. Easier, cheaper, quicker. But they did excellent job on the walls. That's done right, which you seldom see anymore. But I noticed, they've got not quite enough roof overhang. They're pine tar would have saved you a lot of aggravation. Nice big porch though. And inside, it makes sense to have the half loft, but not terribly practical. If you were to go up 2 feet higher on the walls, would have given you a lot more usable room upstairs, would have allowed you to have a floor all the way across, which would have kept heat down here. Because otherwise, in this kind of situation, it'll be hotter than a bugger up there. And down here, you'll just be gasping for air up there. I've been through this. And down below, it'll be cold. But if you can have an actual ceiling in here to keep that heat down, or moderate the heat somewhat, and that is a big cook stove. But good size. I should measure this sometime, see how big it actually is. And it's a good size for that. Most of the time they were, like 12 by 20, pretty normal. This is a little bigger than that. And the big ass piano would have been a little unusual. Well, it's a pump organ. But the basic structure is a good solid structure. But it is always a trick, where your rafters meet that sill. It's a trick to do that right. But a nice place. It's got the right proportions, the right lines to it. But they did do an excellent job on the walls. They got them corners right, which is something you rarely see done right. And you can see they were cut with a circle saw. They weren't hewn out. But that makes sense. Yeah, they did good. But this sort of a, concrete type or cement chinking is kind of a little, not up my alley, but you see that pretty often in newer ones, or even worse ideas. Considerable log splicing going on here, which, normally you can get a long enough log that you don't need to splice. Yeah, they aren't really big either. That log wouldn't have been more than, like 12 inches. And then flattened. But they really knew what they were doing on the corners. That's quite impressive. But the idea is, on these ends, you know, run logs all the way up, pin them, rather than do the board thing. But it works. I have done it, but was not happy with it in the end. Prefer to go with the logs, just more of a permanent solid thing. But boy, God, even, you know, like even these splices, like here's a splice. Excellent job on splicing. And they appear to have put it on a wooden, concrete slab. Yeah. Well, it's a good representation. Not terribly authentic, but it's a good representation. And a fine table similar to what I made, but didn't get the 2-inch wide legs. I went with 4. And it has red paint on it, but I don't think that's ochre. And it looks like that redwood paint, though it has been green at one time. So it's been kicking around a while. Yeah. Oh, it'd certainly be a livable place. You could use some eaves troughs though, because that's not going to be good for them boards. Yeah, pine tar. Gotta have pine tar.